we got our charter. And there were some of you who criticised and say, why are you going through all this old-fashioned paraphernalia? People like ritual, and they liked ceremony. And as I'd started out snobbing the snobs, I thought I'd better go on with it. Because what mattered at the end of the day were the students that you attracted, and as I said, the quality of the staff.
Hello, I am Lisa May Young, and welcome to Dan Weinbren, historian for the Open University and author of the Open University, A History. Hello, Dan.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Can you tell us about the origins of the Open University?
It wasn't part of a national plan. It really relied on a handful of innovators in positions of power. One of these people was the Labour Party leader, Harold Wilson. And he picked up ideas from both sides of the Cold War. And on the 8th of September 1963, he told a rally in Glasgow of his plans for what he called a University of the Air. And he repeated this idea a couple of weeks later at the Labour Party conference. It wasn't official policy, but it was clear that Harold was keen, and that's where the origins lie.
When did Jennie Lee get involved in establishing the Open University?
Wilson had this idea, but didn't fill in the details. And after Labour's very narrow victory in the general election of 1964, he was really busy being Prime Minister. So he handed the brief to a 60-year-old widow who'd never been a minister. Jennie was a Labour MP for about 20-odd years in the Commons, and she'd just become Britain's first arts minister. And she also had responsibility to make this idea for a University of the Air into a reality. So she quickly had to turn a back-of-an-envelope idea into an official white paper. And as minister, she immediately scrapped tentative existing plans for adult educational broadcasts, and she created and chaired a committee to advise her about the new university. And that was her initial involvement.
How influential was Jennie, Dan?
Well, keeping well clear of the civil servants who dealt with other universities, she decided on the form the university would take. It was going to offer degrees, be open to all, even the unqualified, and it would operate independently, separately, and with the highest academic standards. And those three important ideas derive from her past. So first, she thought that the new university would offer degrees to all the community because of her experience. She's a coal miner's daughter. She graduated from Edinburgh University thanks to a grant from Fife Education Authority, an award from the Carnegie Trust, and also lots of support from her family. But she wasn't alone. Between the wars, when she went to university, in Scotland, something like 20% of the students were working class and another 20% were the children of clerks and shopkeepers. So that's pretty different to England. And she said that Thomas Hardy's Jude the Obscure was one of the formative books for me when I was a young student, The Struggle for Self-Education. She knew that working people could take educational opportunities if they were offered. This informed her vision of the Open University. Also, she wanted the new university to be open to everybody because she saw it would benefit everybody. And her vision was shaped by her insistence that adult education should be more than what she called dowdy and mouldy old-fashioned night schools, hard benches. She knew that adult education was not treated as it could be, and as the Open University's first Vice-Chancellor said, it was a patch on the backside of our educational trousers. And she made it clear there's no question of offering students a makeshift project inferior in quality to other universities. That would defeat the whole purpose. And when she opened the library at the Open University, she said that the university had to make no compromises whatsoever on academic standards. It was to be a great independent university which will not insult any man or any woman, whatever their background, by offering them second best. Nothing but the best, she said, is good enough.
And these are amazing words, aren't they? It took just 6 years for the Open University to develop from one line in a speech to a university with a royal charter. Did Jennie face opposition?
She had to swiftly produce a white paper before the 1966 general election. And she had an uphill struggle because, according to her critics, and I'm quoting here, it was an election gimmick, hokum, historical fossil, neither a university nor open, and finally blithering nonsense. When she got back into office in 1966, she had to steer this new idea past the sterling crisis, past the tax increases, past the credit restraints and the prices of income standstill, past the civil servants They thought it ought to be under the control of the same committees as other universities, past the sceptical MPs, and that's including some in her own party, past the educational sector. She felt the money could be better spent elsewhere, and past the jeering press. So she worked with Arnold Goodman, who was the chair of the Arts Council, and he lived downstairs from her. And he produced a set of figures for the cost of the OU, which were a massive underestimate. The OU's first Vice-Chancellor called it, well, perhaps a fortunate accident. Well, perhaps it was, or perhaps it was an astute political move. But it wasn't sufficient to have a vision. She also had to see things through, and she had to convince people. And Wilson, he recalled her contribution when the cabinet met at Chequers just before the 1966 election. He said, "At the end of the afternoon, anybody was free to speak on anything. Jennie got up and made a passionate speech about the University of the Air. She said the greatest creation of the previous Labour government was Nye's National Health Service. That was, now we were going to engage in an operation which would make just as much difference to the country." We were all impressed. She was a tigress.
Jennie Lee left her personal papers to the Open University. What is it like to study such historically significant records?
It's the personal items which reveal truths which the official ones ignore. When Jennie decided on the form that the OU would take, she based that on how she understood the past. In 1926 was a strike which had devastating consequences for her family and her community. Years later, she said, "I was made in 1926 when I saw the suffering imposed on people. I was so infuriated. What was done to the mines in 1926 shaped the whole of my future life." The reason that she wanted only the best for them and for everybody else was personal.
How should Jennie be remembered?
She should be remembered for having created a university which is everywhere around us, and that, without having its own body, relies on our bodies, the staff, the students' families, and their supporters. So she should be remembered for creating a university for everybody.
Dan, if Jennie was here, what would you say to her?
On Twitter, there's a hashtag OU family. I've never seen that family link for other universities. If it is a family, I want to say, Jennie, the baby's growing up. Thank you, Ma.
Thank you, Dan Weinbren, historian for the Open University and author of The Open University, A History.
Now, it seemed to me just logic to try to bring the best in higher education within reach of people who felt that they could be advantaged by it. The Prime Minister made a bargain with me, and he kept it. I was Minister for the Arts, and he said, "For God's sake, will you take on this university project?" Because there was nobody in the department, none of the ministers, senior, nobody in the Treasury. Inside the cabinet, they either didn't understand what it was about, preoccupied with their own jobs, or were actively hostile. And I said, "Harold, I'll take it on the same conditions as the arts, that you'll back me when I need money." Now, he never let me down.